how quiet it got again? So that's why I used to like using this. So first, the first thing you're going to do is I'd like for you to name the culture that you most identify with. And it doesn't say it up here, but on your phone, it is going to ask you a second question. It is going to ask you to look around the room and name one or two cultures that you think you see represented in this room. And then you're going to hit submit. So again, it's www.menti.com, and the code is 532672. So this is a different way you can use it. This is the Wordle version.
That's cool.
I only use this in specific cases because it is a little harder to read. I use it in cases where I know there's going to be a lot of repetition. So a lot of students are going to have similar answers, so maybe for themes. Okay, so we have 32 people who have responded so far now. There are a lot more of you in here, I know. Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, you can continue to try to go on because we're going to revisit this Wordle at the end. Now, I wasn't reprimanding you for only 33. I was just going to say that we are going to come back because I know that this isn't representative of the entire room. So I apologize if you haven't gotten to put yours up here before I move on to the next slide. So you'll see a lot of different answers up here. So I'm just going to read a few of them. Chinese, Hispanic, American, I see a lot. Midwestern, Mediterranean, Portuguese, middle class white, European American, Scottish, Irish, Latvian, well, so somebody wrote food. I think that's actually a great answer. And actually that brings me to the point that I was going to make, is that these are sort of the things that we naturally identify as culture, but there are other types of culture. So culture, if we define it as any characteristics of a group of people, then there's also what we're in right now, which is a workplace culture. When we go to school, for our students, there's a school culture. And what's interesting is that we put that up there. So even though we spend most of our time at work, that is not the culture that we most identify ourselves as. So we identify ourselves as these things, as British, as Vietnamese, as Puerto Rican American. And so I just want you to keep that in mind as we move forward. So today we're going to talk about the cultures that we do most identify with. So this is an activity that I saw done at a school by one of the special education teachers. It's actually a teacher at the McCormick Middle School. Are they represented here today, McCormick?
Yes.
Yes? Where are you guys? Okay, great. So, so this was an activity done by one of the teachers at that school. And what this is it's called the cultural iceberg. And it is something, if you Google it, you'll see it all over the internet. It is an activity that's often done. Have any of you done this activity before? If you could just raise your hands. Okay, great. So the idea about the cultural iceberg is that only 10% of an iceberg is what you can really see. That's the surface part. That's the part that's above the water. But then there's a deeper part of culture that goes beneath the water. It's not what we can see. And that actually is the part that makes up most of our culture. So the 10%, the surface culture, the culture that's easy to see, would be food, dress, language. Those are the kinds of things that we look at a person and we can make a guess as to what we think their culture might be. But then there's a deeper culture that everyone has. And that's made up of our values, our morals, even our concept of time. So I know that in my culture, for example, there's something called the Indian Standard Time, where we always come to everything 30 minutes late. And so there are these deep culture pieces aren't just rooted in where we're from or what country we're from, but they're also rooted in the families that we grow up in that are from that culture. So what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about our own culture. So if you turn to the back of your packet that you received with your agenda on it, you're going to see this cultural iceberg. And you're going to do this activity, and I'm going to model it for you first. So you see the empty iceberg on here. So I am Indian. So I'm actually going to put this on you. So what are the things of my surface culture, and I'm not going to be offended by anything you call out. When you look at somebody who is Indian, what are some of the things you might think about that come to mind? Science. Hindu.
Spicy food.
Food, spicy food.
Curry.
Chicken tikka masala, great. Bollywood, oh, that's a good one. Dave Patel, yes, that is an awesome answer. Patel. Actually, Patel is the most common Indian last name, and Priya, my name, is the most common girl's Indian first name, or was in my generation. In fact, I went to a high school with 500 in my graduating class. There were 8 Indians, and 2 of us were named Priya. So yes, those are the things that you see when you look at me. Are things like Indian, Ravi Shankar maybe, Diwali, chicken tikka masala. What's interesting about these surface culture things is that oftentimes when we're looking at somebody and we see this surface stuff, this isn't even representative of what their culture is. So I am Indian, we do celebrate Diwali, but we never really listened to Ravi Shankar, we listened to other music. We never ate chicken tikka masala. My mom didn't make that. Spicy food, just like every other family, it varies from family to family. My sister had irritable bowel syndrome. I'm sure she'd love that I shared that with everyone. So we didn't eat spicy food. So these are the things you might think about when you look at somebody, but aren't actually representative of their culture, since culture can be so specific. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my culture, and then you're going to do this activity. And when we're talking about deeper culture, it can get a little bit uncomfortable and it can get a little bit personal, which is why I'm going to model it first, so that we hopefully can build an environment where we feel more comfortable to talk about culture. So has anybody ever heard the term ABCD for Indian? So I'm considered an ABCD. Does somebody raise their hand? Anybody know? Anybody know what it stands for? So I'm an ABCD. It's an American-born confused Desi. So Desi is an Indian person. So I'm an American-born confused Desi. So what that means is that I was born here. And so I am innately then, I guess, or inherently confused because I am between 2 cultures. So that is an ABCD.
Who uses that?
Oh, that's a great question. People here and people in India. So it's interesting because you go back and I'd be what they would call an ABCD. So it puts me a little bit outside of my own culture when I go there. Then there's medium wheat. And this is something that a lot of cultures identify with is skin tone. So obviously Indians share similar skin tones, but there is a level of skin tone. And in those levels are also embedded classes and ideals of beauty. So I would be what you would call medium wheat. That's actually the term for my skin tone. And the fairer you are, the lighter wheat, or there's actually different, it's not always wheat. The lighter you are, the more beautiful in India you are considered to be. And the reason that that was important is to name these skin tones was for the purposes of marriage. So when you were getting married, you would know what skin tone you were talking about. And that actually brings me to the new age arranged marriage. So when I talk about identifying my skin tone, when my sister was getting married, she put an ad in the India Abroad newspaper, this was a long time ago before online, and she had to tell what skin tone she was. And then we got in a bunch of resumes of people who were interested in responding to that. And it was considered new age arranged marriage because we were here in America. So even though my parents got first pick, she got to make the final determination. So they made the cuts and then she got to make the final decision. And what was most important in my house is this other thing that you may have heard, MRS degree. Have any of you heard of that? Okay. So it was very important. Somebody said science for when they think about Indians. And in India and Indian families, it is very important to be well educated. I was expected to go to college. I was expected to get a good degree. But the reason I was expected to do all of those things, again, at least in my family, was because then my MRS or my Mrs. degree would be even better. So if I had a good degree, so if I went to college and I graduated and I had the right skin tone, then I was going to have a better pool to choose from when I decided to get married. So that was, no, I didn't do anything in this way. My parents are wonderful people and they're very progressive, but again, this was the way things were done in my family in the beginning. And then as we got a culture to America, I'm very different. My middle sister did a little bit less and I did a little bit less. And so that actually brings me to my choice in career, which was to be a teacher. And I was expected to be either a doctor or an engineer. My dad was an engineer. And I told them that I wanted to be a teacher. And my dad, again, a wonderful person and is so proud of me, asked me if I was also going to quit school and join a band. So again, teacher equals musician. So it was not, to my parents, the expectation. But again, my sister, she went to Wharton Business School and got a business degree, but she's been at home and she did everything she was supposed to do. And not that I'm saying that that's a bad thing or anything. It was wonderful that she's been able to spend time. But her original intention was to make sure she got that great degree and got that right job so that she could get the right marriage and have the right life. So that is a little bit about my culture. And I'm going to be honest with you, that was a little bit uncomfortable. You can see that I'm getting a little nervous sharing these things. So what I would like for you to do right now is I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, and or 3 minutes, we'll see how long it takes, for you to, on your paper in front of you, is I would like you to write down at least 4 things. 4 things on top for your surface culture, and 4 things that go deeper into your culture. So the things that you see when you look at yourself, and then the things that you don't see. And this is based on the culture with which you most identify. So if it's Southern culture, it would be, again, what are the things you see, but what are the things you may not see? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes.
I mean, that is could be a 2%. You do see that. Some people see that.
So it tells you up on the top, visual arts, festivals, things like that. And then things in literature, like motions of perception,
So someone brought up a great point. They said, I'm between two cultures, so I don't know what to put. So what you're going to put on the top is the surface culture, what we consider surface culture, like dress, games, flags, customs, food. And then on the deeper culture would be notions of cleanliness, importance of space, like personal space, attitudes towards social status, values, body language, those kinds of things. So again, those may be things that are particular to your family, your personal culture.
That is it. Was starting in the 50s all the way to now. And they told each story they interviewed, like it's not the 50s, 60s, and then they give the historical background in whatever this is. So they said that back in the day, like in the 1970s, the black social workers were saying, don't give this baby story. It was like a,
I'm in the hippie, I'm a dad, I'm helping these poor people. So that's not good. You should be thinking of this is, I'm loving this child is unhappy. But many people get it. It's yours.
yeah. And so then they talked about sort of in the 80s, they started and that most families have the attitude, the intentions, the right kind to say, oh, I don't see color. And that's how you should, you should treat them like one of them. So essentially now these kids are growing older and they're running into these situations. Here's the example that they gave. This white rural Colorado.
All right, so what I would like for you to do next is I'd like for you to turn to the person next to you and share some, and I hear people already doing it. If you could share with them a little bit about your surface culture and a little bit about your deep culture.
So they're telling these stories about what it was doing. For some of these kids now there's this identity where they don't get it. They don't get it. They don't get that. So the now exactly what you're saying, it's supposed to be, like that's why I asked for them. Like they say the biggest thing is they have to see or have access to read about their culture. Same things we do in the classroom. Just all these things that we're doing now, but supposedly now they say be explicit. But this is the whole runaround of like sub-separate to inclusion, and we're going to go back on sub-separate. The whole philosophy is just, circulating around.
So you have to, or what you can say is, you don't have to those two boys, or let's say like if you are happy, everybody knows. Everybody wants to know. But my son just had a baby, and his girl,
She's not going to do it. Yeah.
So,
Most people do.
so if you don't check that part off, boy, girl,
We can't do that. That's the one thing they don't do. This agency won't specifically find you.
oh, good, okay.
Because
Well,
that's not
good.
ready for this. And they don't. So this is the big agencies that put the numbers, not 3 o'clock in the morning and from 50.
All right,
We'll pay you $30,000.
so I'm going to bring everyone back. I hate to interrupt you though, because you're having such great conversation.
So they call and say, now that we say you don't do this, so hopefully we don't try next year if you're having issues with land or lots of religion. Oh, okay. So this is a whole nother factor.
Yeah, this is getting too complicated.
Excuse me, for lack of better words. Right. No, you're right. That's the, so we
All right, so the reason that we are talking about this is because, for example, I went from K through 12 in Memphis, Tennessee. And how many times do you think India was brought up in my school? Like just as a guess, either in history or in math or in ELA, we read something by somebody who was Indian. Just a guess, how many times? Zero, right, 0. And that's totally fine, right? I'm here, I identify with my culture. But it does bring us to an important question. And just like you guys shared just now with your colleagues about your culture, is it important to recognize the culture of our colleagues? Yes. Or, all right, or is creating, understanding, and maintaining a workplace culture sufficient? No. So I hear some answers. And I just want you to think about this because we're thinking about it obviously in terms of our colleagues, but we also want to be thinking about it in terms of our students. And I heard some people saying that it's not okay. But what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to turn around and talk to the person next to you about if you think it is important to recognize the culture, why? And if you think it's not important, why not? And I do just want to remind you that I went from K through 12 and it wasn't brought up once. And here I am, fine and educated and feeling good about my culture. So I do want you to just think about that. How important is it for us to, the person next to us right now, how important is it for us to have an understanding of their culture? So I'm gonna give you just 1 minute to turn around and talk to the person next to you.
You're like, this training.
Come on, Okay. Okay. Don't give me the mic. Okay. I think there's level of intimacy, okay? And I think the more you let people and students know that you're interested in who they are, they turn around and they give us everything we need to do in school. Everything I ask for, they do it because I took that time to look into their lives first.
Thank you, Linda. Anyone else want to share?
I can run around with that.
Anyone think it's okay for us to leave it at the door? Like I did when I went to school. I just left it at the door and I came in and I acclimated to my school place culture. And I was perfectly appropriate and I succeeded.
I'm Nancy Coward at the Blackstone. So I have a question for you. So leaving it at the door, how did that make you feel?
That's right. All right. It's on.
Oh, it's on, I'm sorry. So that's a really great question because, so I was a motivated student. So I went to school to learn. That's what I did. And so I didn't really think about it. That being said, when I look back, I didn't talk very much. I didn't talk much in class. So the journey that I took and to where I am now, it took a lot longer. I often joke that I wish the Big Bang Theory had been on when I was a kid because that would have affirmed a little bit of who I was. There was even a character named Priya, and even as an adult, when I saw that on TV, I was so excited. And moving to Boston was a huge eye-opener for me, and that's when I started to come into my own. Because I'll be honest, I don't think, having come out of my senior year in high school, I would have been able to stand up here in front of all these people when I could barely talk in class.
Yes.
And so I think that that is what we are really getting to. And I think that that is the important thing, especially when we are thinking about our ELSWDs. Because I was a motivated student. I was there ready to learn, and I had parents who were able and willing to help me. And I didn't have the same challenges that many of our students have. So when we are thinking about access for our LSWDs, it is of utmost importance. It is not just about making sure that we can use every strategy and use visuals and graphic organizers. It's also about access. It's about, like you said, getting them interested, getting them to buy in, because that is, as in Boston as an urban district, what our biggest challenge is. And so would I have bought in more in school? Probably. Somebody brings up India or my culture, my interest gets sparked. I suddenly start listening because I want, even if I was tuned out. And that is what we are, this is, so to speak, another strategy for us reaching our students. And again, for the LSWDs, it's of utmost importance because they are our students who are often most marginalized, because not only are they not feeling included because of their culture, but they also feel somewhat discluded because of the trouble they may have in accessing their curriculum. And so that's why this piece is so important for everybody in this room today. That doesn't mean it doesn't come with challenges. It is still difficult to learn about all of your students' culture. To try to cover it all in one school year is difficult. We need to stick with a pacing guide. It's time consuming to find texts that are relevant. And also, very often, we are worried about making mistakes and being offensive. Even today, when I got up here, I was like, I hope I'm not saying anything that's offending anybody, because again, the culture piece can be very personal. And something that's relevant to your culture might actually be offensive to someone else's culture. So we often shy away from it. We try to be a little more careful. But it's something that we need to, it's a risk that we need to take when we are dealing with our students. And so the solution that I would suggest would be to just start small. To start with one student, one culture, one lesson. And collaborate with a colleague maybe that's from a different culture that might be able to help you with those texts, that may be able to help you figure out what would be the best mode of incorporating a culture. I saw was it history or science? I can't remember, but they were looking at landforms, and they actually talked about different land parts of the world. And that was the way they brought in culture. So they knew that they had somebody from a certain country and used a picture of that landform in that country in order to spark that interest. And another way to do it is to survey the cultures in your classroom by using an activity like this at the beginning of the year, so that you can try to touch on those things as you move throughout the year. So we're going to just watch a short video, and I hope that it works.
What happened?
Today, a barefoot lady observed the show when my soap wells are announced that I'm articulate, which means that when it comes to enunciation and diction, I don't even think of it, because I'm articulate. So when my professor asks a question and my answer is tainted with the connotation of urbanized suggestion, there's no misdirected intention. Pay attention, because I'm articulate. So when my father asks, what kind of thing is this? My articulate answer never goes amiss. I say, Father, this is the impending problem at hand, and when I'm on the block, I switch it up just because I can. So when my boy says, what's good with you, son? I said, I just fall over them people that I've done. And sometimes in class, I might pause the intellectual silent flow to ask, yo, why these books never be about my peoples? Yes, I have decided to treat all three of my languages as equal because I'm articulate. But who controls articulation? Because the English language is a multifaceted oration subject to indefinite transformation. Now you may think that it is ignorant to speak broken English, but I'm here to tell you that even articulate Americans sound foolish to the British. So when my professor says hello, I stop him and say no. Articulate. The proper way is to say what's good. Now, you may think that's too hood. That's not cool. But I'm here to tell you that even our language has rules. So when mommy mocks me and says, y'all be mad going to the store, I say, mommy, no. That sentence is not following the law. Never does the word mad go before a present participle. That's simply the principle of this English. If I had the vocal capacity, I would sing this from every mountaintop, every suburbia, and every hood. Because the only God of language is the one recorded in the Genesis of this world saying it is good, so I may not always come before you with excellency of speech, but do not judge me by my language and assume that I'm too ignorant to teach, because I speak 3 tongues. One for each, home, school, and friends. I'm a trilingual orator. Sometimes I'm consistent with my language now and switch it up so I'm a bore later. Sometimes I fight back 2 tongues while I use the other one in the classroom, and when I mistakenly mix them up, I feel crazy like I'm cooking in the bathroom. I know. But I had to borrow your language because mine was stolen. But you can't expect me to speak your history wholly while mine is broken. These words are spoken by someone who is simply fed up with the Eurocentric ideals of this season. And the reason I speak a composite version of your language is because mine was raped away along with my history. I speak broken English so the profusing gashes can remind us that our current state is not a mystery. I'm so tired of the negative images that are driving my people mad. So unless you've seen it rob a bank, stop calling my hair bad. I'm so sick of this nonsensical racial disparity, so don't call it good unless your hair is known for donating to charity as much as has been raped away from our people. How can you expect me to treat their imprint on your language as anything less than equal? Let there be no confusion. Let there be no hesitation. This is not a promotion of ignorance. This is a linguistic celebration. That's why I put trilingual on my last job application. I can help to diversify your consumer marketing goal. I wanted them to know when they call me for the interview, I'll be more than happy to show that I can say what's good, what I want, and of course, hello. Because I'm articulate.
All right, so I'm going to end there, or with one just final thought about the fact that, again, culture and language, they can't be separated, which is why I wanted to play this, because language is sort of our key into this culture. And for our LSWDs, they are, again, dealing with that one more level of culture and language that is separating them from everybody else. And else I was going to say. But thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Priya, and thank you guys for your wonderful attention and enthusiasm with this really cool topic that, you know, is so much a part of the lives of our kids. Now we're going to watch the documentary, and this is their opening line. You can take this in. The Bilingual International Academy, Brooklyn, New York. The children of immigration here to stay are the new Americans. Becoming them will determine the nature of this country in the 21st century and beyond. Yeah, we kind of ran out of time.